Before we get to our amazing guest, I want to remind you the NAMI Tennessee email list is free and it's awesome. And it tells you about stuff, well, like this. It tells you about our gala. It tells you about our walk. And it tells you about legislative advocacy opportunities that you can do absolutely free and from home. We send them about once a week, and they're really cool, and we work really, really, really hard on them. Did I mention the part where it's free to sign up? Just go to namitn.org and give it a shot. All right, that's enough of that. We have an awesome guest, James. Welcome to the show.
Hi everyone, how are you guys doing? How are you, Gabe?
I am fantastic. James, tell the folks who you are. We know that you're the youth and young adult outreach coordinator for NAMI Tennessee, right? It's even in your little chyron right under it. In fact, I'm going to get rid of this little scrolly thing so that you can have the full attention. James, tell the folks who you are.
So yes, I am James Thornton. I serve as the youth and young adult outreach coordinator for NAMI Tennessee. I've gotten into this work about 4 or 5 involved with NAMI. I served as the program coordinator for NAMI on campus at Tennessee State University. And then I transitioned into president of the NAMI on campus chapter at Tennessee State University. I'm an advocate for mental health, and I love the work that NAMI is doing, and just looking forward to see the work that NAMI does in the future. And so it's been an amazing journey being a part of this work, and it's truly transformational and impactful as well. So I'm delighted to be here for this NAMI at Home talk.
James, once again, thank you so much for being here. All right, today's topic is Black History Month and mental health. And it's an important topic, so let's just jump right in. Why is Black History Month so important?
Well, Black History Month is so very important because of just the many contributions that African society, being that African Americans have endured and suffered so much throughout the test of time, but yet still have achieved. It's really a month to just fully celebrate so many different achievements in education and politics and athletics. I'm just of historical Black colleges and universities, Black fraternities and sororities, great achievements to society, as well as, desegregation of schools and different things of that nature within the healthcare field and the field of education. And this time in February, just 1 month out of the year, we use this month to spotlight those contributions. And so it's very important to have these discussions about Black History Month, not just for, Black individuals, but, all individuals to reflect on, the work that has been done and is continuing to do in the African American community.
James, thank you. Thank you so much for that answer. Now, of course, NAMI is a mental health agency and charity, and there's always a mental health tie-in. So it's essentially the same question, but what's the tie-in to Black History Month and its relationship to mental health?
Well, the relationship is basically just being an advocate for mental health in the mental health field. For, of course, mental health affects all races and backgrounds and demographics of Black Americans. There are some disparities there that have to be addressed in regards to mental health. Access to mental health treatment is much more difficult when it comes to Black Americans. There's also a stigma and healthcare barriers that we typically, being a person of color, we lean more so on family or maybe religious affiliations like church or, our peers to really lean on during mental health crisis or, we face in regards to mental health, rather than going to, doctors or mental health clinics or clinicians. We typically tend to lean on those types of support groups. And so because there are, it's very important that, during this month, not only do we highlight the contributions that Black Americans have made, but we also advocate for Black mental health as well. Being that, there's so many different things that happen historically that causes, stigmas and barriers. It's important to have these talks as well.
one of the things that I think comes to mind real quick, if I can ask you a quick follow-up question, is that many people believe that all awareness months, whether it's Black History Month or like Mental Health Month, which we have in May, that the opportunity is to teach people outside. So let's use May, right? We often believe that May being Mental Health Month, it's not to educate the people who already know about mental health issues. It's to educate the people who have not heard about mental health issues. Now, taking that one step down, for African American, or I'm sorry, for Black History Month, is there an opportunity to teach inside the African American community? Is it solely an external thing to raise awareness for other people, or is it a combination of both, especially as it pertains to mental health?
There's definitely a combination between both internal and external because there's so much, so many different things to learn. Some people outside of the community don't know about the effects that mental health has on, and some people within the Black community are not sure of the resources available to them and all of the different things, initiatives that are available to them. And so it's important to definitely highlight, but it's both internal and people need to learn within the Black community what's available, some things that are in place to help aid mental health and Black Americans, as well as for those who are not a part of the Black community, to learn and just simply, advocate for the rights of Black people in regards to mental health.
Thank you so much, James. My next question, sort of a continuation of the previous question. How does mental health impact the African American community?
Oh wow, it impacts it in so many different ways. First, like I said, there is a stigma there as well, and just trying to navigate through different resources, looking at underserved communities and populations that may not have access to healthcare or access to different mental health clinics. It's very important to have this surrounding this, and so the impact it's not just something that happened a year ago, 2 year. It been impacting us for the test of time from the beginning, and so we tend to look at like the suffering from enslaved people, some of those effects that they still have on us. So having these discussions, like I said, is so very important to advocate for. So when it comes to people of color, we're less likely to have mental health access to mental health services. We're less likely to seek out services. Typically, we tend to lean on friends or family or our churches. We're less likely to receive care, and most likely to receive like poor quality of care, based on location of where the individual is. So maybe there's a lack of resources, maybe there's a lack of doctors or physicians or clinicians that are in the area, and so that is a disparity right there, as well as most likely to end services prematurely. And so it's just important. There's so many different factors that come into play, and it's based off of background and access as well.
James, thank you so much. I think that you'd be hard pressed to find any mental health advocate of any race, color, creed that is not frustrated with the mental health system. It's a frustrating and broken system. Can you speak specifically about how those cracks that everybody is aware of, right? Because again, I think nobody likes the system, right? Let's just be honest. Everybody thinks the system sucks. But can you talk about how it's different for African Americans, these cracks in the system, in a way that they are, the cracks in the system do not impact me the same way that they would impact you. And I'd really just like to dive into, why that is, what you think that is, and just any thoughts that you have to add on to that.
Yes, so the impacts and the cracks that you speak of is so very valuable to unpack and unveil. And as you uncover one layer, you see there's layers and layers that continue to unravel. As you talk, it differs tremendously. Like I said, for access, just not having the available resources or the necessary people to address mental health issues within the Black community. And then one of the biggest things is also representation. A lot of the times for Black, when we are going through mental health issues or even going to see a doctor, you know, there may not be a person of color in that field, you know, where we're seeking help. You know, there might not be a person of color who's a doctor, or, you know, and not just, you know, physically or, you know, just different things. Like representation is so valuable to our community. And so if there's a lack of representation, that hinders people from seeking help. And so it's very, very important for us to be represented, uh, and for us to continue this work in advocating for Black Americans. Also, you know, serious mental illness, you know, rose among all ages and Black American and African American people between 2008 and 2018. And despite, you know, rates being less than the overall, major depressive episodes increased from 9% to 10.3% in Black and African American youth. So it's not just Black American adults, it's our youth as well that we have to address. And so we also have to address, you know, mental health on different levels, different backgrounds. And like I said, of course, we know that mental health, you know, affects all types of, you know, races and genders. But particularly when it comes to Black Americans, there's so many different layers to it that we have to uncover.
James, thank you. Thank you so much. So my next question is, are there any historical events that affect mental health and African Americans?
Oh, absolutely. There are several. One that I will highlight is the Tuskegee experiment. The Tuskegee experiment was basically happened in Macon County. 600 men who were offered free, you know, health care. You know, some of them were already diagnosed with syphilis, and so it was government appointed doctors to go to seek those individuals who were syphilis, and basically they were thinking they were getting treatment and, you know, about to get well, but basically what it was basically an experiment just to see how the progression of syphilis would occur and how it affects Black people, and if it didn't. And so those individuals were actually withheld from, you know, care as well as treatment just because of the experiment. And so because of that, it was huge, and because of that, that also created regarding mental health, and also created um, a this, you know, a trust, a this. It also created like a barrier for, you know, being trustworthy within the mental health community.
I can imagine just hearing that and what little I know, you're being asked to trust the system. You're being asked to trust doctors. You're being asked, but we happen to know that this happened to I'm trying to find a word better than ancestors, to your fellow countrymen, to your I it I can see why you wouldn't want to trust doctors. And I also know that many people, especially with serious and persistent mental illness, don't trust doctors. So you put those two things together, and it seems like a monumental barrier to folks seeking care. I know that you don't have, I mean, if you had the answer, you would be one, worldwide famous. You'd probably win a Nobel. But do you have any thoughts on how we can bridge this gap? Because I think it's very reasonable for African Americans not to trust the system based on history.
Well, basically, what I would say is first, learning about, you know, things that happened historically that still affect us today. Yes, this being, you know, years and years ago, is still on our community today. So first is advocating and learning, you know, as well as having these discussions and having talks like this create awareness. And there's some people externally and internally within our community that do not know the event here. And so having these talks are so valuable, but also looking at ways of how we can progress forward. What are some things systematically that are in place that keep us from moving forward? That keep us not trusting the healthcare field, and then seeing stigmas as well That way we can move forward. But also, I think the first thing is just realizing that they still have an effect today.
Thank you so much, and I can certainly understand why this would have a huge effect and be very impactful on our thinking. And again, I just want to circle back to many people don't trust psychiatrists, psychologists, therapy, and when I say many people, I'm thinking of my dad. You know, my dad is just I don't know about that. You spilling your guts to a stranger. So when you add on all of this historical context, which it really gives somebody ammunition to potentially not seek care. And I know how difficult it is to help people seek mental health care. There's, as you pointed out, there's just a huge stigma, hard stop, and then we start adding these layers. So I hope that the viewers and listeners are starting to see why this is just a much more complex problem than, oh, well, let's make an appointment with a doctor and head right over and everybody will get well. So thank you for illuminating that. My next question is, what are some things that are in place to help improve and or bring awareness to mental health in African Americans? Because clearly everybody wants to move forward. We don't want anyone left behind.
I think the good thing, we have so many different things in place. Just speaking from the National Alliance of Mental Illness, create spaces and have these, very important conversations regarding Black mental health, and it's so important. I know one of the coolest things that I saw NAMI do was actually a barbershop conversation called "Cutting the Stigma" about mental health, and it was in the barbershop with barbers and several different people within the Black community that had those talks. You also have like the um, the Sharing Hope program, as well as like the Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective, Black Mental Wellness, the Black Mental Health Alliance. So there are several different things that are in place to improve and bring awareness to mental health as it relates to African Americans. And so just discovering as well these different programs is so, talks and sharing these resources. And just because, you may not be a part of the Black community, but learning about these are so valuable. You may have Black friends, you may have Black students or, Black colleagues that need these resources. So if you find like these different things that I've mentioned in place, please share them with those that you know, because it does help tremendously improve and bring awareness to African Americans and mental health.
James, thank you so much. So one of the things that you've mentioned a couple of times throughout this broadcast is that it's difficult to find a person of if you're a person of color, it's difficult to find a person of color in the mental health field. It's difficult to find representation. It's difficult to find people who you didn't say this exactly, but I've heard this before. People who look like you to get services from, and it does make me wonder: is the mental health field culturally relevant to African Americans?
We still have work to do within the mental health field. Definitely, several different things need to be put in place. Of course, more representation. We need to, see people who look like them, and for people, it may just, be a sense of being comfortable. You know, maybe coming in and seeing someone who doesn't look like you. Maybe there's a disparity there because you may not think that person can understand what you're going through because they are not, you know, they don't look like you basically. And so there has to be cultural relevance in the mental health field for African Americans to feel safe, to feel represented. I think once that need is met, it will expand bridge the gap between mental health and African Americans, definitely. And so it's very important, like I said, to have these conversations and continue to work advocating and bringing awareness to this as well.
James, thank you so much. There's so many questions that I want to ask you as a follow-up. What can we do? How can we move faster? We've been aware of this for decades. Why are we still talking about it? When does the action part start? And I know that if you had the answers to that question, like I said, you'd win a Nobel. I appreciate you so much being willing to talk about it. And I know that these conversations, while small, they ripple, they echo. And if we could just get, I mean, if we could get every single mental health charity in America to have one of these, I mean, the ripple effect would be absolutely magnificent. And I just want to point this out because I know that this is a huge problem. It's a huge social problem that encompasses so many things. And sometimes huge social problems don't get fixed because nobody wants to try because it just seems so difficult. And I want to ask you: do you think small things like this matter? Do they help? Do they? What would you say to folks that feel that because it can't be fixed, there's no reason to try? Because I imagine that that's got to be devastating, and we've all heard it. And I'm just curious your thoughts on it.
Absolutely. Having these small talks matter tremendously. Um, the information for those who are viewing now, just sharing this video, it's a great part. It's a great step. Some of the things that I mentioned, if you were unfamiliar with it, share with a friend or continue to learn more about it. I think the first step is just doing the research on your own and building your own awareness, and then going out and sharing what you learn with other people. It's so vitally important. Just simply, share this video. Another person of color who is in your friend group or your community, share this video with them. If you are a person of color, maybe it's something I mentioned that you were not aware of. Maybe like cutting the stigma, a NAMI initiative. Maybe you never heard of it. Also, if you see a post on social media regarding Black people and mental health, share it. Just a simple reshare, a like. You know, if you know a person within the community who is struggling, who needs resources, share what you learn. These are so very valuable because they create big change.
James, thank you so much. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. I call it final thoughts, but a fancier way to put it is ask yourself any question you want and then answer it. Is there any? This is just the opportunity to share anything that you would like to share with our audience that I didn't ask you or that didn't get brought up. The microphone is all yours.
So my final thoughts are: hopefully you learned something as it relates to Black History Month. Continue to advocate and learn and build your knowledge, and that goes for the Black community as well as people outside the Black community. Black History Month is so valuable and so important to talk about and discuss and celebrate because of the historical things that years. So of course we know being enslaved until the positive contributions that we made to America is so important to speak on it. You have historical figures in place that are unsung heroes. So take the time to learn. There's still time the month of February. Continue to have these important discussions as well. So what I like to do with my friends is, talk about, people that's not typically talked about in history. Of course, we know, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and, Malcolm X and those, but, what about Bayard Rustin and, Claudette Colvin, who made such a great impact? It's so important to research and know that be committed to being a lifelong learner. That's all the work that we do within NAMI is learner and learn and advocate because there's always something new to be discovered. There's always a new way to do things. And so the small things like this, they do matter because they create big change. And also just, continuing this topic just outside of Black History Month, 12 months, but continue to do the work, continue to research, continue to learn and read and share what you have. And also come join us at NAMI and see the work and initiatives that they have in place as well. And know that we are committed to change and committed to bridging the gap between month and Black Americans in general.
James, once again, thank you so much for being here. We cannot appreciate you enough, both at NAMI Tennessee. Did we mention that, everybody? James is one of us. He works for NAMI Tennessee. Huge round of applause. Woo! We love it when we have folks from NAMI Tennessee on the show. James, thank you once again for being here. I really, really appreciate it. We really, really appreciate it. And we appreciate your candor and your vulnerability and your honesty. Small things make for big change, and I'm glad that you could be here with us. James, once again, thank you. And listen up, everybody. Here's all I need you to do. Join NAMI Tennessee's email list. Just go over to NAMITN.org and sign up. It is absolutely free. All right, we will see everybody next time on NAMI Tennessee at Home Live. Bye.